brand new information suggesting that the relationship and the overall situation going on between Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat is not something relatively new. I'm here to break down all of the brand new information that we have on this episode of Heat Digest. So let's not waste any time and get right to it, breaking down the beginning of the tension between Butler and Miami. Now, based off a recency biased type of idea and really just going off what the mainstream media has really been covering, again, recency bias taken into effect just for a second. But again, over the last year, how did last season end? How did the off season go? And now up to this point of the regular season, of this NBA season, what has the Miami Heat and Jimmy Butler situation really look like? As we know, last season did not end the way we wanted. We were a play-in team. We lost in the first round of the play-in to the Philadelphia 76ers, where Jimmy Butler suffered a right MCL sprain with roughly 3.5 seconds left in the first quarter, where then Jimmy Butler, as only he would because he's the toughest dude, one of the toughest dudes in the entirety of the NBA, went on to play with a sprained right MCL and gave us a heroic effort that ended up in a loss. Obviously, we went on to play the Atlanta Hawks in the second round of the play-in tournament where we would win without Butler, to then move on to the first round of the Eastern Conference playoffs to play the soon-to-be NBA champions, the Boston Celtics, where we lost in 5 games. And immediately following that Game 5 loss, Jimmy Butler, who did not play a single minute in that first round play-in or playoff tournament, if you will, or playoff series, as well as the second game of the play-in tournament, he went out and he made a contract demand. He wanted a contract extension to take him to the age of 38. Now, we all know what this contract currently looks like with Jimmy Butler. Obviously, he has a player option going into next year. And again, he could opt in, he could opt out. If he opted out, we all know he's a free agent. If he opts in, he is now being paid $52 million for that third and final year of the deal. Now, Jimmy Butler wanted a contract extension that would, again, take him to the age of 38, which would be a 3-year deal, taking out the player option and then the player option would then be replaced by the first year of the new deal that would, again, take him to the age of 38. Again, Butler wanted this because he wanted to feel really safe in a way. He wanted to feel like he was not going to be moved. He was going to be taken care of, obviously, financially, as well as just knowing he's going to be a part in living in Miami, South Beach for the foreseeable future of his career. Well, it seems like that wasn't the first domino to fall in the Pat Riley, Jimmy Butler saga and really the tipping of the iceberg. Now, obviously, we got a bunch of headlines following that contract demand by Butler in this past offseason. Quotes from Pat Riley telling Butler to keep his mouth shut if he's not on the floor, as well as other things, trade speculations, mock trades involving Jimmy Butler and this Miami Heat team and a slew of teams surrounding the NBA, as Jimmy Butler, going into the season, as we all knew, had so much value as it. Again, he's Jimmy Butler. But again, let's get to it and break down the article written by Jake Fisher, breaking down the chemistry started crumbling around Jimmy Butler in Miami long before the trade request, latest on the Stein line that we've cited so many times on this channel. But again, Jake Fisher goes on to say as follows. Butler, by that point, was clearly established as the Heat's unquestioned linchpin, essentially green-lighted by the franchise to come and go and play as he pleased. I remember visiting Miami's morning shoot-around in Oklahoma City back in December of 2022. Butler walked out prematurely with Kyle Lowry in lockstep. Mind you, that was before Butler's injuries and intermediate availability, according to league sources, became a source of tangible tension within the organization. Going on to say, sources say even Lowry, who remains as close away from the court as anyone to Butler, gradually grew fatigued by the teammates' headstrong tendencies on the floor. Currently in the second season with his hometown Philadelphia 76ers, Lowry declined to comment last week when an interview was requested. So this is very interesting. This isn't a bit interesting. This is very interesting because Kyle Lowry, as we all have known through his days in Toronto, then with Miami, now obviously with Philadelphia, he's never really been a problem starter. Now, obviously, on the floor, he can be a hothead, and in the moment, he's a competitor, like all NBA guys really are. And obviously, That's something that we all know about Kyle Lowry. But again, he is a fierce competitor as well as just a good teammate. He's always seems like he's always smiling. He's never on the bad side of the media side of things. He's never really hated by the fan base, regardless of what team he's playing against or for. So again, to see here that Kyle Lowry was growing fatigued and really bothered, it seems like, with the actions and the doings of Jimmy Butler in the sense of really coming and going as he wished. It's interesting to say that it rubbed Kyle Lowry the wrong way is very interesting. Now this article goes on to say now it's Pat Riley's front office that has shown it will no longer tolerate Butler's freestyling, announcing to the world on January 3rd that the six-time NBA All-Star has been suspended for, quote, conduct detrimental to the team, end of quote. Among Butler's transgressions, according to league sources, have been multiple instances of Butler skipping out on morning shoot-arounds altogether and insisting on private flights separate from Miami's team charter. Former Heat star Tim Hardaway Sr. told Sirius XM NBA radio over the weekend that Riley sent a 10-page letter to the Players Association detailing Butler's missteps. And now, this is growing more and more interesting. Another guard involved that was involved with the Miami Heat, still is involved with the Miami Heat in some way or fashion. Tim Hardaway Sr., the legend, he comes out and he details what the heck is really going on between Jimmy Butler and Pat Riley, saying that Pat Riley and inside or behind closed doors of this Miami Heat organization, Pat Riley and the rest of this Miami Heat organization seem to be flat out fed up with Jimmy Butler and really just the way he goes about just dealing with himself in the organization. Now, Jimmy Butler is a star. There's no way around it. But again, when we watch him through the regular season, this is not something relatively new. This is something we've talked about for the last few years. It's Jimmy Butler possibly coasting through the regular season. Now, the 6-year career in Miami has been wildly successful, making it to conference finals as well as NBA finals multiple times with deep playoff runs. And again, that is what the Miami Heat is looking for. Now, obviously, we have not won a title since the Big Three in LeBron James and Dwayne Wade and Chris Bosh, and the list goes on of notable players on those rosters. But again, the goal is the same. We want to win. We've heard Butler vocalize it as well as Hero and others. We want to win. We want to bring a title to South Beach. And again, we need to get out of being a play-in team. And that has been one of the wildest and the most prominent conversations we've had surrounding this Heat team. And to have Butler not coast through the regular season would be a great helping in really separating the Miami Heat from being a 7-8 seed to a possibly a 5-4 or even a top seed in the Eastern Conference. So what do we do? What is going to happen with the Miami Heat? Well, the article goes on to say, and I quote, "You don't disrespect authority, and that's what Jimmy Butler has been doing," end of quote, Hardaway said. "It's about accountability. If you can't take rejection because everyone's been saying yes, yes, yes to you, now the world's coming to an end." And again, that is Tim Hardaway Sr. discussing the go-abouts of Jimmy Butler involving this Miami Heat situation and how Pat Riley and the rest of this organization is really going to take it. And now we all know Pat Riley, known as the Godfather in the league, and really ever he's always been labeled, it feels like, as the Godfather, being that role in the NBA surrounding the National Basketball Association. It doesn't seem like someone you really want to play with and really going back and forth with. Someone that if you don't agree on something, that is one thing, and everyone is entitled to their own opinion. But when it comes down to him being your boss and you would rather do certain things like fly private and not fly with the team, that can be a problem. If this is the way things go in Miami, and this is a part of that Heat culture where we're all going to fly together. I don't care if you're Dwayne Wade. I don't care if you're LeBron James, Shaq. It doesn't matter. If Jimmy Butler, Tyler Hero, the list goes on. It would name a notable player, someone that may be considered the all-star of this team or the superstar of the league, regardless of whether or not they are on this Miami Heat team. They are going to really follow suit with this Miami Heat culture and the Miami Heat ways that we have watched and just observed over the last 30-plus years of Pat Riley being involved with this organization. Now, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Now, we discussed Jimmy Butler's contract. Now, obviously, as of right now, we all can bet on the fact that Jimmy Butler, if he does get it to free agency as a member of the Miami Heat this season, he's not going to opt into that player option. He's going to opt out. He's going to enter free agency. There is no way on God's green earth, based off of what we've seen up to this point, that would lead us to assume Jimmy Butler would obviously opt into this player contract and come back to Miami for 1 year. That's just not going to happen. The main thing that started, at least in recency, that started this massive conversation and the ending of this relationship between Jimmy Butler and the Miami Heat was the failed ability to offer Jimmy Butler a contract extension for whatever reason it may be. We don't know if you can stay healthy. We don't like really what you've been doing behind the scenes, behind closed doors, and we're not going to vocalize it on a national scale and give everyone our inside business. But again, we don't sit too well with you, and because of that, we're not going to extend you unless you come out into this following season, obviously the season we're currently in, and outperform what we've seen in years prior. Now, again, Jimmy Butler is Jimmy Butler, and he's been damn good at the game of basketball, and he's been a great piece for this Miami Heat team, but these numbers this season are not going to get it, and it really, really does resemble those moments where we see Jimmy Butler really coasting through this regular season. Now, he's averaging 17.5 points, 5.5 rebounds, and just under 5 assists per game with 1 steal, as well as shooting 55% from the field and 37.5% from behind the three-point line. Now, those are good numbers, but again, coming from someone who we expect to really move mountains when the time comes, this is when we are still sitting at barely 500 overall in record, and we are battling for the 6th seed or the 5th seed in the horrible Eastern Conference. Again, the top 2 teams in Boston and Cleveland are strictly running away with this Eastern Conference race. It's going to be a 2-team race, if you will, and 3 through 8 are really going to just be the best of a dumpster fire. And I know that sounds very harsh and very brutal, but again, if you look at the teams, you look at the records compared to teams out west especially, it is just very interesting to see, especially when you go talent for talent. Now, the Heat have the talent to compete, but again, without Jimmy Butler there, that talent is diminished. And if Jimmy Butler is there and he's only giving us a half-assed effort, when, again, that game that really started all of this in Indiana, that last game that we saw Butler play, 9 points in 20-plus minutes, 25-plus minutes of basketball, not really getting a lot done, and then he says that he can't find his joy again. It's Jimmy Butler, if teams do alter their trade packages, he will be gone before February 6th. But again, if those trade packages remain to be the bare minimum in hope to get Jimmy Butler for pennies, Jimmy Butler will have to return to this Miami Heat team, and he's going to have to prove his worth in order to get paid this offseason. And really, that should result in winning Miami Heat basketball. Now, obviously, the statistical production would have to go up from Butler, but again, just the overall energy, the mentality, just the overall effort that you present is going to move mountains. And again, it doesn't have to be 25 plus, but do not coast. Be a part of winning basketball. Be on the plus side of the plus minus category and stat that we review at the end of these games and overall through chunks of these games and through the part of the season. Again, that'll be it for this episode of Heat Digest, and I will see you guys on the next one.